What is up, guys? Randomodium here, and one of the things that I've seen that commonly holds people back and prevents them from climbing is that they aren't very gold efficient. They don't prioritize the right things in order to maximize their team's gold. So in this video, we're going to talk about all the different ways that you can get gold in League of Legends and how much gold on average people get from each of these different sources. So there's going to be some math involved, and I know how you all love math, but I promise you that this math is not too complicated, it's not too boring, and it's really essential for this discussion. That's the only reason why I'm going to talk about it. We're also going to apply some very basic financial and business concepts so we can actually talk about the true net amount of gold that you're going to get from each source. Finally, we're going to finish with some logic trees. No, not these kind of trees, you damn apes. These kind of trees, logic trees. So we're going to finish with logic trees, and we're also going to finish with an analogy that's going to help you better prioritize your goals in game so that you can not only maximize your gold efficiency, but you can also maximize how quickly you can climb. So there's four basic ways that you can get gold in League of Legends. There's passive gold, which is the gold that you get at the start of the game, and also you'll get a set amount of gold every minute that the game progresses. You can also get gold from minions. The way you do that is you just last hit the minion, so you deal the killing blow to a minion. You can also get gold from destroying towers, and this gold is not only granted to those who are near the tower when it's destroyed, but you also get a set amount of global gold for your team. And then the final way to get gold is champion gold, and that's what we commonly refer to as kills and assists. So first up, we're going to talk about passive gold. So on Summoner's Rift, you get 500 starting gold, and then every 10 seconds you get an additional 20.4 gold. This translates into 122.4 gold every minute. So if we assume that the average game lasts about 30 minutes, which is true, the average game lasts about 30 to 35 minutes, but just for simplicity's sake, we're going to assume a 30-minute nominal game time. You will passively get 4,172 gold. And for the rest of these calculations, we're going to assume a 30-minute game time just to make calculations really easy. So next up, we've got minion gold. So there are four different types of minions, and of course, they all have to give you different amounts of gold, and they also have to have different scaling with the gold. So for those of you who don't know, the amount of gold you get from minions actually increases as the game goes on. So first up, we've got the melee minions. These guys will give you 20 and 1/2 gold plus an additional 0.125 gold every 90 seconds. Next up, we've got the caster minions. And by caster minions, I don't mean the guys that shoutcast the LCS matches. Those type of casters, disappointingly, don't drop any gold when you kill them. Believe me, I've tested it. Instead, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the ranged casters that are in League of Legends. Those three little ranged minions that come with every wave. And they give slightly less gold. They only give 17.5 gold per caster minion killed. And that amount does increase by the same amount, 0.125 gold every 90 seconds. You've also got the siege minions who show up every third wave at the beginning of the game, and then they'll build up to every wave towards the end of the game. They give you 45.5 gold, and they have a 0.35 gold increase every 90 seconds. And then finally, your super minions, who will give you 40 gold plus an additional 0.5 gold every 90 seconds. Those guys only spawn if you take down an inhibitor. So the most common way that we talk about how much gold you get from minions is how much CS you have, or creep score. So if you look at people who are in bronze, typically they'll have a CS per minute of 4 or less. And if you look at people who are at like the LCS level or at the challenger level, they'll typically have a CS per minute of 10 or more. For this example, we're going to focus on people who are kind of in the middle, who have about 6 CS per minute. So that means in a 30-minute game, you'll get 180 CS, and that actually means that you've last hit about 50% of the minions that have come down one of the waves. So we're assuming that you're hitting 50% of the melee minions, 50% of the caster minions, and 50% of the siege minions. This translates to about 4,300 gold, and this will vary slightly depending on how many siege minions you get versus casters and melees, which also translates to about 145 gold per minute. But the thing that we really want to focus on is this 4,300 gold. This is the total amount of gold that you're going to get from minions over a 30-minute period. The next type of gold you can get is from towers. So depending on what type of tower you destroy, it changes how much gold you get. So we've got outer towers, inner towers, inhib towers, and nexus towers. So outer towers will give you 100 global gold for your entire team, and then 250 gold for anybody who's near the tower when it falls. So assuming that you're the one who kills the tower by yourself, that would give you 350 gold, and then your allies would get 400 gold separated between the four of them. The same can be true for inner towers and inhib towers, and you can see that the amount of global gold goes up and the amount of local gold goes down the closer you get to the nexus. Additionally, if your team is the first team to take a tower, you get an additional 400 gold for your team. 300 of that gold will go to the person who destroys the tower, and the remaining 100 will be separated among the other people who aren't around. So if we translate this into total amounts of gold, we can see that if you have the 3 outer towers, you'll get 2,250 gold for your team. The 3 inner towers give you 2,400 gold for your team. The inhib towers give you 2,400 gold for your team. The nexus towers only give you 500 gold for your team. And if you get the first tower, you get an extra 400 gold for your team total. So we wanted to find out what the average amount of gold you're going to get. Not how much you get when you destroy all 3 of the towers, not how much gold you get when your team destroys all 3 of the towers with you not around. So on average, if your team destroys 3 outer towers, you're going to get 450 gold. If your team destroys 3 inner towers, you're going to get 480 gold on average over a large sample size of games. If your team destroys 3 inhibs, another 480 gold, the 2 nexus towers, 100 gold, and then the first tower, 80 gold on average. So in order to get our total amount of gold that we get from towers on average, we're going to assume that in a 30-minute time frame, the average team will destroy the 3 outer towers and the 3 inner towers. And then we're also going to assume that 50% of the time, your team is the team that gets the first tower gold. So you're going to get 450 gold, plus 480 gold, plus 40 gold because you only get the first tower 50% of the time. So this gives you a total gold on average after 30 minutes of 970 gold from towers. So finally, we've got the champion gold, and this is the gold that everybody likes to focus on. And if you get the kill, you're going to get 300 gold for yourself, and then 150 gold that is split up between all of your allies that are involved in the kill. And then if you get an assist, you can get a maximum of 150 gold for yourself, but if multiple allies help you out, then you'll get only a fraction of that gold, and then your ally, the guy who gets killed, he gets 300 gold. And of course, this can be increased or decreased based on whether or not the opponent has a kill streak or a death streak, but we're going to just assume 300 gold nominal for a kill, 150 gold nominal for an assist. So if you look at statistics for players across a wide range of elos, so I'm talking bronze to challenger, on average, players have about 6 kills, 6 deaths, and 8 assists. So what this means is that on an average game, you're going to get 1,800 gold from kills. And you're also going to give your team 900 gold from getting those kills in the form of assists. And then for your assists, you're going to get 1,200 gold from your assists, maximum. And then the allies who actually get the kills, they're going to net about 2,400 gold for your team. However, you're not guaranteed to get the full 1,200 gold because the assist gold is split up among everybody who participated in the kill. So on average, you're probably only going to net about 50% of that total assist gold. So you're only going to get about 600 of that 1,200 total gold. So 1,800 plus 600 is going to give you, on average, about 2,400 gold for kills and assists in a 30-minute game. So this gives us our total numbers for gold. So passively, we're going to get 4,172 gold. From minions, we're going to get 4,300 gold, assuming we are an average player. From towers, we're going to get 970 gold on average. So this amount will increase or decrease depending on whether we win or lose the game. And then finally, we on average will get about 2,400 gold from kills and assists, and these are all for a 30-minute nominal game. If we break this down into a pie chart, we can see that 35% of our gold we're just going to get passively. 36% of our gold we're going to get from minions, 20% of our gold we're going to get from champions, and 8% of our gold we're going to get from towers. So this is really interesting. Over 1/3 of our gold we get passively, over 1/3 of our gold we get from minions, and then the remainder is split up from towers and champions. However, one of the things we really haven't talked about is the risk associated with each of these different gold incomes. So minions, they make up 36% of the gold that we get, so the reward we get from farming minions is high. Towers only make up 8% of the gold we get, so the reward we get from towers is low, and then champions make up 20% of our gold, so the reward for them is medium. However, if we look at the risk of farming minions is very low. The chance of you dying just farming minions is low. The only time that you're going to die from farming minions is if you try to step forward and get a minion that you really can't get because your opponent can punish you and kill you. For towers, the risk is a little bit higher because teams are much more likely to rotate for towers than they are just for minions. Nobody's going to be spam pinging you to try and deny that siege minion from your enemy. But they will be spam pinging you to try and get you to rotate to help them defend a tower. So towers are much higher priority, which means that enemy teams are much more likely to contest that objective, which means that you're much more likely to die from that objective. However, the vast majority of the time when you die, it's because you're fighting champions. It's because you're trying to get that kill or get that assist. I'm talking about, all-inning your opponent. I'm talking about tower dives. I'm talking about team fights and ganking. That's where most people die. So trying to get gold from champions is a very high-risk thing to do. However, these risk assessments are really kind of qualitative rather than quantitative. So we really have to assign numbers to really see what the net amount of gold we get from each of these areas. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to look at your champion deaths and how much gold you give the enemy team by you dying. So on average, people die 6 times per game. This means that the enemy gets 1,800 gold by killing you, and then assuming that each time you die, that kill is assisted by an enemy teammate, that's an extra 900 gold into the enemy team's coffers. So total, for a 30-minute game, if you die 6 times, you're giving the enemy team 2,700 gold. Next, we have to apply a percentage to each one of these different areas and apply how often you die because of that different gold source. So for minions, because they're low risk, you probably only die about 10% of the time because you're trying to farm minions. So that means that the net cost to you is about 270 gold, because 10% of 2,700 is 270. For towers, the risk is a little bit higher, so we bump it up to 20% of your deaths occur because you try to get a tower. So that means that the cost to you is 540 gold. And then champions make up the bulk of it, the remaining 70%. And that's 1,890 gold. So now that we have the cost for each one of these different gold sources, we can get the net amount that you get from each type of gold source. So for minions, we earned 4,300 gold on average. We give the enemy team 270 gold on average, so our net is 4,030 gold. For towers, we earn 970 gold on average. It costs us 540 gold that we give back to the enemy team, so our net is 430 gold. And then for champions, we earn 2,400 gold. We give back 1,890 on our deaths, so our net is 510 gold for killing enemy champions or assisting in those kills. So if you remember, we had this chart up here where we had the passive gold, minion gold, champion gold, and tower gold. This is not the net gold. This was our sales, essentially, if we're going to use business terms. This was not factoring in cost or risk or anything else. When we go to the net amount of gold that we get, we can see that first of all, passive gold disappears completely because the amount of passive gold our enemy gets is always going to be identical to the amount of passive gold that we get. Therefore, the net is 0. And we can see that the amount of gold we get is 81% of it comes from minions because that is a very low risk way to get gold. And it winds up that you get a very high reward. 10% comes from champions. You can see that we dropped from 20% of our gold to 10% of our net gold comes from champions. And that's because trying to get a kill or get an assist is a much higher risk endeavor than, say, getting towers or getting minions. And then towers remained almost constant, about 9%, because it's a medium risk thing, and we took out the gold that we got passively, because that's a net 0 amount. So this graph is very, very profound in its significance for a wide variety of reasons. So I first want to focus on the amount of gold that you get from towers and from champions. Now, looking at this graph, it's very easy to marginalize to this gold because it's only 9% for towers, 10% for champions. And it's true that you don't get a lot of gold for yourself from towers and champions. The real value of tower gold and champion gold is the gold that you give back to your team, right? Because when you destroy a tower or you kill a champion, you're not just getting gold for yourself, you're getting gold for your team. Conversely, with minions, you can't gift any of the gold that you get from minions to your team. There's no way to do it. The only way that you can help your team get back in the game if you're behind or your team is behind is by destroying towers or assisting them in killing champions. So that is the real value in getting towers and getting champions, is that it helps get your team gold, not that it helps you get gold. The primary way that you get gold is minions. And this is why when you first start League, everybody tells you that you need to focus on last hitting. It is an essential skill because the vast majority of your gold, the way that you're going to pull your weight on your team, is from last hitting minions. So if you focus solely on last hitting minions, you will improve. And this is how a lot of people go from low elo to medium elo, just by getting better at farming. However, looking at this graph, somebody who's medium elo can actually go up to higher elo if they realize that if their gold profile is 81% minions, that means that their enemy's gold profile is also 81% minions. So the best way that you can deny your enemy gold is by denying them CS. And this is the real difference between medium and high elo when it comes to the laning phase, is who can harass their opponent and deny them minions while still maintaining a high CS. So that's the real importance of this graph, is to show you that yes, the majority of your gold is going to come from minions, and the majority of the gold that you can deny from your opponent also comes from minions. But you shouldn't neglect the towers and the champions, because that's how your team gets gold. That's how you help your team get back into the game. However, one of the big things we haven't talked about is you don't win the game just by getting gold. This isn't some type of death match where the team wins when they reach a certain number of kills or they reach a certain gold amount. The way that you win in League of Legends is you destroy the Nexus. So we're going to go through a logic tree and figure out how we can most effectively destroy the Nexus. So the way that you destroy the Nexus is you destroy the towers. That's the only way you can reach the Nexus. You've got to destroy the outer towers, then the inner towers, then the inhibs, and then finally you can destroy the Nexus towers and the Nexus itself. So you have to destroy towers if you want to destroy the Nexus. How do we destroy towers? Well, the way that you destroy towers is actually two ways. You can either force the enemy team to back, because the enemy team is going to defend their towers to the best of their ability, or you can use map movement to make the enemy team be out of position, which allows you to take towers uncontested. So map movement, that's such a huge concept, and it's such an important concept that I would need an entire video just devoted to that. So I'm not going to really talk about map movement in this video. Instead, I'm going to be talking about forcing your enemy to back. Now there's two ways that you can do this. You can either allow them to back voluntarily or involuntarily. So voluntary backing means that your opponent actually pushes the B button and recall. So this can be done by just out-trading your opponent or depleting their mana, things like that. Involuntary backs are kills, right? If you kill your opponent, you're forcing them to involuntarily go back to the fountain. But it's really important to note that kills are not a necessity. You don't need to kill your opponent to get towers. You just need to force them to back. And then you'll have about a 30-second time window when you can actually siege the tower and take it. So the next real question is, alright, how do we force our opponents to back? Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can either have a gold advantage, which means you can outtrade your opponent, or you can just straight up outplay your opponent. However, you can't rely on being able to outplay your opponent. Yes, you want to improve your skills, and yes, you want to outplay your opponent when you can, but you can't rely on it. Alright, there's going to be times where your opponent is better than you, and you don't want to rely on just outplaying your opponent, because that means if your opponent is better than you, then you're just pretty much going to automatically lose. Right? You want to focus on getting that gold advantage. That's the way that you're going to be able to guarantee that you can force those backs to get those towers to destroy the Nexus. So we're really going to be focusing on how do you get a gold advantage. Well, if you want to get a gold advantage, there's two ways you can do it. You either outplay your opponent so you can get a kill and that gets you a gold advantage, or you have to have a higher CS. And as we've already talked about, you can't rely on outplaying your opponent. There's going to be people that are better than you at this game. It doesn't matter what elo you are, you can't rely on just being able to solely outplay your opponent. There's going to be games where he's better than you. There's going to be games where you get counterpicked. There's going to be games when the jungler camps you. You can't rely on outplaying your opponent. So the only other way that you can guarantee that you're going to have a gold advantage is having a higher CS. And that's why having a high CS is so fundamental. Because if you have a high CS, even if you don't outplay your opponent, you're going to be able to have a gold advantage. And if you have a gold advantage, then that means that you're going to be able to force backs. And if you're able to force backs, that means that you're going to be able to get towers. And if you're able to destroy towers, then guess what? You destroy the Nexus and you win the game. So that's why everybody says that getting CS is so vital, because CS will directly translate into you being able to destroy the Nexus. However, having a CS advantage is only useful if you actually pressure objectives. It doesn't matter if you have double the CS of your opponent if you're not pushing down towers. Likewise, it doesn't matter if you kill your opponent if you don't push down towers. You have to kill the towers in order to destroy the Nexus and win the game. So I'm going to end with you guys with an analogy. And the analogy that I'm going to use is nutrition. And I'm going to talk about what each different type of gold income represents when it comes to nutrition. So first up, we've got CS. And CS are vegetables, right? They are your base source of food and nutrients that you should be focusing on your diet. Vegetables are where you get most of your vitamins and minerals and nutrients, everything that you need for your body to grow and thrive and survive. The same thing is true with CS. You get the majority of your gold from CS. But let's face it, vegetables are boring. Nobody likes vegetables. And likewise, nobody likes CSing. It's boring, it's tedious, it's not fun. Alright? Just like vegetables, nobody gets excited over CSing. And if you are one of those crazy people who does get excited over vegetables, you need to see a doctor. Like, now. Next up, we've got towers. Alright? And towers are like steak. They're like meat, they're protein. They're what everybody wants to eat. They're like the first thing that everybody goes to on their plate. But towers don't necessarily give you everything you need, right? You've got to eat your vegetables in order to get your steak. You got to have a high CS in order to be able to get those towers. So steak and protein, it's essential for that higher brain functions. It's essential for your muscles. It's essential for you to become the best person that you can be. Just like towers are essential for you to win the game. But you have to have that CS. You have to have those vitamins and nutrients that you see in vegetables in order to really thrive and be able to make the best use of that protein. And also, unrelated, I found this on Google and I thought I'd plop it in because I got a complete kick out of this. This is actually a steak cake. I have no idea who created it, but if you like this, if you think this looks tasty, you also need to see a doctor. So finally, we've got kills. And kills are candy. That is their nutritional equivalent. All right? They're what everybody wants to focus on. Everybody wants dessert, right? You know, when you watch the LCS games, you don't watch them for CSing. You don't watch them for towers. You watch them for kills. You watch them for team fights. You watch them for tower dives. You want to see blood. And that's the same thing with nutrition. Everybody wants candy. Everybody's got a sweet tooth. Everybody has their guilty pleasures that break their diet. And it's okay to indulge in that in a little bit. All right? It's good to have that emotional satisfaction of eating something that you really, really enjoy, as long as you do it in moderation, right? The same thing is true with kills. Get the kills when you can, but you shouldn't ever chase for kills. You should never prioritize kills over towers or over CS. Just like you shouldn't just skip dinner and just eat candy for the rest of the night, right? You gotta have your nutrients. You gotta have your proteins, and your vitamins, and your minerals. So kills are like candy. It's fine to have a little bit of it, but you don't want to have an entire diet composed on candy. And you don't want to just focus solely on kills in your games of League of Legends. This gets us to our final synopsis, and that's that CS is greater than towers, which is greater than kills. And I'm sure all of you have heard this said by dozens of high ELO players. Everybody will tell you this motto: CS is greater than towers, is greater than kills. So why did I take this entire video to get to this conclusion? Alright, because if I didn't explain this, if I didn't take all this time to show you why CS is better than towers, is better than kills, it wouldn't mean anything to you. I could share with you something truly profound with mathematics, like the derivative of position is velocity and the derivative of velocity is acceleration. That's a truly profound mathematical concept. But if you don't have any understanding of calculus, if you don't have any understanding on what those terms mean, it's meaningless. It's just me spitting words out. In the same sense, if I don't explain to you the different sources of gold, you're never going to truly accept that CS is greater than towers, is greater than kills. Because you get the most enjoyment out of kills, right? The game tricks your brain into thinking that kills are the most important thing in the game. You know, look at the announcer. The announcer has 15 different things that they say for the number of kills you get or whenever you ace the enemy team. And they've got one thing that they say when you take a tower. And they've got 0 things that they say when you get CS. So the game itself is reinforcing this incorrect stereotype that kills are the most important thing in the game. So you have to understand at a very fundamental and at a very basic level that kills are not important in order to override that program. So if there's one thing you take away from this video, it's prioritize CS over towers and prioritize towers over kills. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was educational. I hope that I explained myself very well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like the content on the channel, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I hope you all have a fantastic day. This is Randomonium signing off.